So recently, Termx posted a video where he is straight up cooking called Borderlands is Depressing. It's a 30-minute video where he's giving his raw thoughts on the game. And if you're a Borderlands fan, I think you should go watch it. However, there was one topic he brought up that he was talking about that I heavily disagree with. And as your average hate farming YouTuber, I'm going to focus on the one negative. But to make this special for you guys to watch, I invited Termx to discuss with me whether Borderlands should be more similar to story-based games like Skyrim and Fallout, or more similar to the two most popular looter shooters, Warframe and Destiny.
Yo.
Can you give a better intro?
Yo, what's up, thick fillet?
Actually, that works. That works.
You put me on the spot, bro. I feel like I'm watching a YouTube video live.
So, Mr. Termx, I think in your video, I think in your video, you actually started with a great premise. And that premise was Borderlands has an identity crisis with what it's trying to be. And I actually fully agree with that. So you later go on the video to basically say that Borderlands is a looter shooter and it should act more like looter shooters. And you bring up that Destiny and Warframe are the two most popular looter shooters out there. And honestly, I think that's a great point, that those are the two most popular looter shooters. So you're trying to basically draw a comparison with how Borderlands can be more like them, and not necessarily more like them, but that what are the good aspects of that game that keeps players coming back to that game, right?
Yeah.
So personally, that's what I disagree with, because I posted a video a while ago where I specifically say Borderlands needs to stop copying Destiny, and Borderlands literally needs to be more like Fallout and Skyrim. So I feel Borderlands once should be more of a story-based game, and you're essentially saying it should be more like Destiny and Warframe, which, to be honest, they're a live service model, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So go ahead and clarify that point a little bit better, because I feel that a lot of people think that you just want to play a live service game.
Yeah, and mainly with like the comments, like you said, the main comparison really is Destiny 2. And I think that's just because they've been competing for so long. But my goal with that was I want Borderlands to pick up on more of the features and more of the positives from these other games. I don't want Borderlands to become these other games. Like, if we wanted that, we wouldn't be playing Borderlands. We would just go play the other games. So coming from that, like how Destiny formats their content cycles to where they do things within the game to keep players engaged. Like if you look over to Borderlands, we don't have many things to...
What's a specific feature from Destiny you could bring up, or Warframe?
I think the most notable thing I could point out is in Warframe, they have, like, you know how in Borderlands we have these kind of tile set based areas? Like when we were playing the pre-sequel together, when we did like the Robot Army quest, like those tile set areas. And then there's more like these open world areas in Warframe. So what they have is something called an Eidolon. And what it does is it brings 4 players together to take on the Eidolon, which is basically like a raid boss. That content is soloable, and there's the option to do it solo, but there is incentive for you to do it with people because it's a lot easier. You get more drops. It's easier to do an advanced version of the hunt where you guys collect lures, whatever. And you could capture it instead of killing it, which is a lot easier to do with a team. And I really wish
you can capture the raid boss.
You could literally capture the raid boss in Warframe.
What do you I've actually never played Warframe. What do you do when you capture it?
It's you have to so it's very sectional. It's you have to destroy the limb in your like Tenno form, which is like your raw form. And once you destroy the limb, you could either capture it or you can kill it. If you kill it, you're going to get less rewards, but you're still going to get rewards. It's not useless to kill them, but you get incentive for capturing it. So if you get 4 lures, you could capture the Eidolon. It like hovers up into the air and you capture it. And players can get endgame resources, endgame mods, endgame cosmetics, exclusive cosmetics just for pairing up as a team and doing these things. Like obviously you're going to have your like top 10% of players that can do all this solo, but it mainly incentivizes multiplayer, and I wish Borderlands had something like that. Maybe not capture the raid bosses. That's a little extravagant.
Yeah. But I get your point. They actually have a mechanic to want you to play with other players, and they actually have mechanics to want you to replay it as well.
So like how you said earlier, you view Borderlands as more of a story-driven game. Do you feel like that's holding the game back, that people like you with your similar mindset are saying it's a story game? Do you think that creates divide in the developers' case when they're making these games because they come to expect that from the games?
So, number one, I feel that that's actually is kind of what Gearbox is doing with given their content drops. Like, they have like since Borderlands 3 came out, we've gotten Wonderlands, we've gotten Tales 2, and most people think we're getting Borderlands 4 this year. So, with the fact that they are releasing multiple titles one after the other, I feel that this is where the identity crisis kicks in. Because with Borderlands 3, and you brought this up in your video, that they started releasing takedowns. And the Guardian takedown specifically, everybody calls that the Destiny takedown, do they not? So,
100%.
and even the content of a takedown itself is definitely a more Destiny themed thing. So they try to do that, right? But at the same time, Borderlands isn't a live service game, at least not yet. And they just keep releasing title after title. So even just in the fact of their content drop, they release it as a story-based game, but they keep trying to copy Destiny. And I feel that's where that identity crisis really comes from. And that's like really what we're focusing on, because I actually thought that was a really good topic that you called it in your video, that Borderlands has an identity crisis. Yeah. So why I feel like they should really focus heavier onto the story-based aspects is for replayability, because let's be real, what has Gearbox been trying to do ever since Borderlands 2 with everything they're doing? Like, what do they really want to do, and what does everyone say they're never going to do? And that is
live up to Handsome Jack.
Not just that, but remaking Borderlands 2. What is that game where they can drop like if Borderlands 4 could be as successful as Borderlands 2 in money wise and the community feeling wise? That is literally what they want more than anything. They want to remake that so bad. And the thing with Borderlands 2 is it truly was a story-based game. Like, there's a lot of endgame content as well, but I don't think the endgame is so separate from, like, just because a game has endgame content doesn't mean it's not a story-based game. And that's what I feel Borderlands' identity is it's not a story-based game, and it's not a looter shooter either. Because when we talk about looter shooters, like, what is a looter shooter? Because at the end of the day, like, you could call Fallout a looter shooter. Like, you get loot and then you shoot. Like, what the hell does looter shooter even mean? Does that mean It has to be a live service game? No, it just means that it's a game where there's a heavy focus on guns, and there's a lot of different guns you could find. That's what looter shooter really means. So it doesn't need to be a live service game. It could absolutely be a story-based game. And then, since it has such a heavy focus on gun, a lot of end game content where you can use all those guns, right? So, right. And what I feel is that to remake Borderlands 2, they would have to create a really good story and then also have a lot of really good end game content baked into it from the beginning. So with Borderlands 3, I really feel like the Varkid raid boss, what's his name in Borderlands 3? Hemovorus?
Yeah.
I think he got cut so that there was no raid boss in the base game, so that everybody would be super hyped when Maliwan Takedown came out, because that's the first raid boss Borderlands 3 is getting, right? Like, that's what that, like, I feel like they actually cut him so that they could build that hype towards that. And if you look at Borderlands 3's content cycle, it was just the cheapest live service model ever. Like, they would do Loot the Universe events all the time. They would drop takedowns, they would drop the cartel event. Like, and if we're being honest, the only actual 3 content drops in that game was cartel event, Maliwan takedown, and Guardian takedown. And I'm discarding the Halloween and the Valentine's event, because Borderlands has always had holiday events. That's not a feature of a live service game. Like, many games do holiday events, you know what I mean? And those pieces of content in Borderlands were really small anyway. Like, the Valentine's event, I don't even think there was a specific map for that. It was just hearts could drop the Valentine's weapons, right? Mm-hmm. And with Captain Haunt, that was just one small map with a boss at the end. Like, it was basically coiled captors. And it was free, so no one complained. I mean, people complained because you couldn't turn off the skulls, but no one complained about the map itself, right? So, discarding the holiday events, there was really only 3 sort of live service drops that they tried to push, which was Maliwan Takedown, Guardian Takedown, and Cartel Event. And personally, I feel if this stuff was in the game at launch, and if they put Hemovorus in the game at launch, then it would be a full game. Like, and that's my problem with Borderlands, is they cut stuff from the full game and then brought it in as events later on to try to build hype. but I feel like if this stuff was baked into the game from the beginning, so like
Oh,
if
yeah.
if Borderlands is a story game, and then once you beat the story, you have X, Y, Z, A, B, C to go do, then that's your whole Borderlands 2 experience, because that's what people do in Borderlands 2. They get to level 80, they get to OP8, they go kill every raid boss, and then you can keep playing on that character if you want to, but at that point you're done and now you get to start over. And that's what gives it really good replayability. And that's what I think my focus is with talking about Borderlands as a story game. What does a story game need to do to retain players? It needs to have really good replayability. If there's nothing to do at endgame, it's going to lack replayability. At launch, by the way, I'm talking about, because a lot of people praise the amount of content in Borderlands 3 now. A lot of people criticize the quality of the content, but a lot of people praise the amount of content in Borderlands 3 today. But at launch, there was no content. Like, everybody was farming Grave Ward at launch. Were they not?
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
You made like a really good fucking point where you mentioned a good story game has good replayability, and I feel like that was part of Borderlands 3's issue, because like playing through Borderlands 2's campaign 2 times wasn't like a drag. Like, sure, there were slower areas, but nobody wanted to listen to the shitty story Borderlands 3 has to replay it. I know people that actively didn't make a new character because they didn't want to go through the story. So I see what you mean with the whole replayability thing. If Borderlands didn't have that catering to the story, it makes you not want to replay it, so it indirectly takes away from the whole experience. So yeah, I see that.
And that's the thing. Personally, I've replayed, like, I've posted over 350, 400 videos on Borderlands 3. Like, go check my YouTube channel. I have replayed that story a total of 4 times. And three of those were challenges. I'm pretty sure I did a quickest to Mayhem 10 challenge. Oh, one of them was the hunt. I did the hunt one year. That's one reason I played the story again. Like, I never went back to play that story because it was ass.
I would actually like to bring up for my next point a Metacritic article, if I could.
Yep.
I trust Metacritic more than a lot of these other paid articles.
Send me the link.
Now, this was updated December 29th, 2023, so it's fairly recent, obviously. And if you look at the Metacritic scores, Metacritic is they're going off the user ratings, not the paid corporation ratings. And by user ratings, the Borderlands series is still number 1. I mean, it's by like a 3% difference compared, but look who's in number 2. Warframe is in number 2. Number 3, Risk of Rain. You were just talking about that on your stream. Number 4, Destiny 2. So that's another reason why, even when these articles bring up looter shooters and they compare them, Warframe and Destiny are always in the same talk. But I feel like...
And here's the thing. I want to talk about this even more. And this actually makes me feel like they should lean way more into the story. Because why is Borderlands number 1? Like, which game made Borderlands number 1? Oh, Borderlands 2 is number 1. Not even the Borderlands series. Borderlands 2 is number 1. And what was Borderlands 2? Was it a live service game or was it a story game? What would you say Borderlands 2 was?
See, that's where the raw answer is obviously it was a story game, but that's where the gray area is, because I feel like Borderlands 2, it gave you, and you have to remember, this is like from a story game, they provided 2 DLC character packs, they provided 4 mainline story DLCs, and then they provided 5 Headhunter DLCs, which were like little side things, but it was still content with raid bosses.
Yeah, but that's not a live service model. That's a story game model. The Headhunters are a toe dipper into the live service model, but everyone's cool with Headhunters in a story game. Nobody would criticize that and call it a live service. And a lot of those came out years after. And they even did the 5th DLC 7 years later. 6 years later, something like that.
Would you agree that Headhunters from Borderlands 2 specifically are a great example of how Borderlands can turn live service features into their own thing without the negativity that live service presents into the space?
No, just because I don't think Headhunters are live service. I think they're just mini content drops, which is sort of like, hey, Borderlands 2 was super popular. We made more content for the game. We got to charge for it. You know what I mean? And they were only $2.
I only bring that up because games like Warframe and Destiny, you'll be surprised, they'll hype up big content drops, and then literally it's equivalent to a BL2 Headhunter. That's the only reason why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Because there's times where like they're almost interchangeable because there's live service updates that feel like a Borderlands 2 headhunter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and here's the other thing I want to say real quick is according to the Metacritic ratings, Borderlands 2 is the #1 looter shooter. So like if we even talk about comparing it to Warframe and comparing it to Destiny, Borderlands 2 is ahead of that shit, and Borderlands 2 is a story game. Like people definitely love Warframe and Destiny, and they have more players, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, Borderlands 2 probably had more players than both those games when Borderlands 2's content was actually still happening, like when this game was still popular.
Oh,
like
100%.
like it's fucking what, 12 years after Borderlands 2 now? Like it only has 3K players now on Steam, or maybe 4K.
To put that in perspective, I think a lot of your audience will resonate with this too. To put that in perspective, 12-year-old Borderlands 2 right now has more players than Starfield on PC.
Oh, wasn't Starfield ass though?
I mean, hey, $200 million budget. You have $200 million to make a game.
Yeah,
That's
but Starfield
sad.
messed up, didn't they?
They messed up everything on that.
Yeah.
You can make another video regarding that game.
So now to talk about some other stuff that you mentioned in your video that I actually do think were good shoutouts was the 3 playthrough things. Now, personally, I agree with you. 3 playthroughs is a lot. However, like Borderlands always has the aspect of bringing in OP levels or mayhem levels. So how could we make 3 playthroughs worth playing? And this is something I think I plan to make a video about in the future. And I can go ahead and drop some of my ideas here on that. Do you have any ideas on that? Or do you just think they should get rid of 3 playthroughs and just go to 2 playthroughs?
I would have to say it really, like you preach in a lot of your content when it comes to takedowns, how you like applauded the pacing of a lot of content. I think the story is hand in hand. I think the pacing of the story has to be well enough to make 3 playthroughs bearable. In Borderlands 2 kind of is on the like thin ice of kind of bearable to do 3 playthroughs, but not really. But nobody's doing 3 playthroughs in Borderlands 3 for like a comparison of like the amount of pacing
I don't think,
needed.
Does Borderlands 3 even have UVHM?
No,
Okay,
2 playthroughs.
Yeah. So I feel that now that the game's been out for a long time, and now that, like, you know, when Borderlands 2 came out, there wasn't a lot of feedback on this stuff because they were the first people to really do this. But now that the game's been out for a long time, like, there's a lot they can do to evolve the second and third playthrough. Number one, you brought up enemy variants. We both agree on that. Like for example, normal stalkers are just basic AI enemies. And I actually think the rabid stalker is a great way to evolve an enemy because the rabid stalker will fucking jump at you nonstop. Like it's actually a more difficult stalker to deal with.
Same with the rabid skag.
Even if you can, you know, dismantle a rabid stalker fairly easily at endgame, like it is a variation of an enemy that like actually attacks you harder. You like once a rabid stalker is attacking you, you can't ignore it. Like you actually have to do something about it.
Yeah.
So that's one way an enemy can evolve. Another way is like those armored bandits you showed in your video. Another thing is the special enemies like the loader with the cock claw. Like even though that's not a harder enemy, it's a cool enemy. And if just cool enemies showed up on the second and third playthrough, that would make it more special.
Should we bring up Tubbies and Chubbies and
Yeah, Tubbies
those?
and Chubbies. Yeah, exactly. Cool enemies. Yeah. More cool enemies should spawn. I also think that nomads with midget shields is a really good enemy for an evolving mechanic. Like Bad Maw, how he drops 3 midgets. Like, what if in the second and the third playthrough, they drop 2 midgets in the second playthrough, 3 midgets in the third? Like, more enemy spawns, right? And then one last thing I want to bring up is... Oh, no, that's it. Do you have any more evolving enemies?
I think if they're going to do it, they have to do it in such a way that it actually is notable. Like, it's cool. Like, the Rabid Stalker is a great example of what they should go for. Like you said.
Obviously, like, we can only look at old enemies. Like, we didn't brainstorm new enemies before this video, so... I think Tiny Tina DLC enemies are really good mobs.
Oh, like the bones and all those guys?
Well, just in general. They all have really cool mechanics. Like the skeletons where you have to take the sword out of their back before they actually die.
Oh, yeah.
The speedy orcs. Oh, the just enemies that evolve. Like, if you don't kill them fast enough, they evolve and get all their health back and become stronger. Yep. One thing I think, which should be which is a mechanic from Borderlands 3, which should make it if we're going to do 3 playthroughs. I'm not saying we should do 3 playthroughs because the third one does get tiring. But one mechanic in Borderlands 3 is the cartel event. Like, what I love about the cartel event is that there's beacons that spawn more enemies as you kill more. But what I love the most is that named enemies, like when Fish Slap comes out the beacon randomly, because he has a chance at a dedicated drop. So what I was thinking was on a second and third playthrough, whatever map you're spawned on, what if all the named enemies from that map with their dedicated drops could just randomly spawn in groups of mobs on the second or even the third playthrough? That would make people want to replay those playthroughs. Like, who drops the Herald in BL2?
Savage Lee.
What if Savage Lee could just randomly spawn when you're running through that map on the story missions in the groups of mobs? Like, a cartel beacon spawns, a couple mobs spawn, and then you kill those, and another cartel beacon spawns, and then Savage Lee randomly shows up and drops a Herald on the second and the third playthrough. And that's one thing with the loot progression system, like what you were talking about with white weapons and green gear. Like, you shouldn't be getting really powerful weapons on your first playthrough. But that's a way for the second and the third playthrough to become more exciting, because now you can have more drop spawn. Like, there's no issue with there's an issue with getting a legendary at level 13, but there's no issue with it getting a legendary on your second playthrough at level 30, because that'll help you finish the second playthrough faster. And that goes with the pacing. The pacing is really important to be able to do these second and third playthroughs.
Can I piggyback off that?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't think people realize, because it's not talked about enough, when Borderlands 2 launched, the world drop rate is still dog shit for legendaries on BL2. But when Borderlands 2 launched, legendary drop rate was horrendous. Like, not 10%. I'm pretty sure it was like 1 or 2% on launch for the first 2 years. So that's why the moonshot farming for Warrior was so popular, because on the end of your first playthrough, Warrior guaranteed dropped a legendary. And that was really exciting, because when the game first came out, no one really seen legendaries, and if you did, you were pretty damn lucky.
Yeah.
So would you almost say that they should keep that same energy for the first playthrough going forward?
For the first playthrough, definitely. If you get a legendary at any point before, like, maybe the second to last final boss, your playthrough's ruined. It actually is. Legendary ruins your playthrough if you get it before this, unless you get it near the end.
So would you? Okay, let me try to get this full thought out. Would you say first playthrough? These are arbitrary numbers. First playthrough, let's say every boss you kill has the 1% chance to drop the legendary, and then you get the guaranteed at the end. Second playthrough,
so that
1% goes to like 5%.
We were actually talking about this in a Twitch chat the other day. My thoughts is the first time you kill a boss, even on the first playthrough, the first time you kill, because remember, people replay these story modes on second and third characters, right? So I think a better idea is first playthrough, first time you kill the boss, 0% chance dedicated drop. The first time. Now, if you're on your first playthrough and you go kill that boss again, like let's say you're playing your second or your third character at this point, and you want to farm a legendary to do your first playthrough a little faster. The first time he doesn't drop the loot, but all of a sudden when you save quit, now he drops it because you killed him the first time. So that would mean when the game comes out and it's a new game and people are just playing the game normally, like a new player, they're not going to get that legendary to ruin the game. But seasoned players who are replaying the game, they know, the first time I kill the boss, whatever, I can't get that legendary. But now I can save quit and target farm that legendary. That would be a really good mechanic in my opinion.
I think, you're probably going to get some backlash for saying that, but I kind of agree with that.
No, just the very first kill.
No, yeah.
So you're level 13, you kill Gigamine, the first kill, you're never going to get a Hell Shock. So for new players, they're not going to have their game ruined. But if you're on your second, your third character at that point, and you're like, I want to get through this story fast, I want to get a Hell Shock, after you kill him the first time, save quit, target farm him. You can get it on at level 13 if you choose to. That's the point. You need to be able to choose that, and then it goes to regular dedicated drops.
I think that idea also creates a healthier creator space, and the reason I say that is day one of Borderlands 3, we have obviously we had the bigger creators posting guides, but day one of Borderlands 3, we had multiple legendary guides already out. And I know that's because of early access, but when you have these players only focus on the legendaries and chasing those legendaries before they even start the game, in their mind, that's all they care about. So the rest of the game's kind of soiled, like you said. The rest of the game is like, whatever. I'm just gonna farm this legendary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you let them experience the game, feel the progression as a character, it's a very important thing to feel your character get stronger. That's like the most satisfying thing of Borderlands. They don't get to feel that if you get a, like you said, like a health shock at level 13.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you implemented it like you said in that fashion, I think it would be healthier for not only the player but also like the entire creator space and how we view legendaries.
Yeah. All right. I'm about to we don't got to harp on this. I'm going to spitfire some ideas that you're going to agree with. I can guarantee that. If you don't, comment on it. But I'm just going to spitfire some ideas. So, first playthrough, you start with the white gun. Second playthrough, you start with a blue gun. Third playthrough, you start with a purple gun. How is this not a thing? Evolve the playthroughs, right? All right. Second, and this is all about evolving the playthroughs, right? So, TVHM, UVHM. Make the vendors better. Give us an exclusive vendor once you're in UVHM where you can get better drops. Like, bro, when you open the vendor and you're level 50 on your third playthrough, and it's all whites and greens, you ain't doing shit with that. Oh, second, this part's really important. We could talk about this for a second if you want to, or we could skip past it. When making the game, in Borderlands 3, what's the biggest meme ever? Talk to Lilith, right?
Yeah.
And the early on in the story, there's that mission where Tannis says, wait around and loot till I get ready. Why is there so much, like, wait around for a second? Like, we need to get rid of that. In Borderlands 3, there's a lot of required mobbing where you are required to mob to get through the story. But in Borderlands 2, there's maps you have to run through instead that are filled with mobs. But if you're replaying the game, you can skip most of the mobbing in Borderlands 2, and I think even the pre-sequel. Yeah. You can skip most of that mobbing. So, like, there needs to not be required mobbing, and this is a pacing thing. Because on my first playthrough, I'm going to do that mobbing, right? But when I go to replay the game and I want to get through the story a little faster, I have that option once again. And then for TVHM and or UVHM, or maybe evolve this somehow, but side quests, when you finish a side quest for the reward, it needs to just be, you could just redo it. Like, as soon as you finish a side quest in UVHM, the character just has the same side quest again. That way you could fucking farm side quest rewards.
So you say, like, the whole entire side quest again, just repeatable?
Yep, just repeat the side quest straight up for UVHM. Not the first playthrough, for the second or the third. No, not the first playthrough. Because these are incentives for people to go play the second and the third playthrough. Like, once I get to that third playthrough, I can fucking go farm whatever quest reward. I could just do that quest over and over.
Okay. I like that. If it's locked to the last playthrough, I think that's great.
Yep. All right. Okay, I want to talk about the modding community. So everybody knows that Gearbox does not really like the modding community. They don't like people modding their game. We don't know why. We don't know if the devs just have a big ass ego, and because we want to play the game differently, they're not happy about it. But why is Skyrim and Fallout still being replayed? And it's because of the modding community. You can use their mods on console. Like, why do people try to say modding is illegal on console? I've heard that so many times in the Borderlands community, but yet Skyrim and Fallout, you can mod on console, can you not?
You can.
So that's not illegal.
And the funny thing,
I swear that's a myth. I've heard that so many times that it's illegal to use mods on console, and that's why Borderlands doesn't have it.
The one thing I'll say is they are actually, the developers in the community are so in tune with the Fallout franchise that there is a literal menu in-game for the console community on Fallout 4 to scroll over to and just download community mods and put them into your game.
Like Borderlands, like, what are the most popular mods? Like the BL2 fix mods, the BL3 fix mods? Like, people like modding, and modding is such a small part of the games because they can't be done on console. And there's a large player base on console.
On Xbox, you can click on and then it's into your game. You have a load order and everything.
And another thing I want to say real quick is a lot of mods for Borderlands 3. Like, I was playing Torg mod recently and my game kept crashing. But I'm pretty sure one of the main reasons for that is because Gearbox has not released a Borderlands SDK. Am I right about that, or am I wrong about that?
I'm probably not the person to ask.
Fair enough. So people in the comments below can tell me if if Gearbox released the Borderlands SDK, would the mods be more stable? I'm pretty sure they would be. I'm pretty sure there's something Gearbox could support to help make the mods more stable as well. And if you're making a story-based game and you want people to replay it, you need to support the mod community, in my opinion. You need to make it available on console. You need to stop having this stigma about it. Like, it's just weird. All right, Termx. So for the closing segment of this video, I'll just let you know I haven't changed my mind at all. I think Borderlands should be more similar to Fallout and Skyrim with everything we talked about with the modding community, with the replayability of TVHM and UVHM, with just everything we've talked about. So you go ahead and give your closing thoughts, because mine are just everything we talked about in the video.
I will say, if I did have to choose between the both, I would go with the modding side and how Skyrim and Fallout is treated. I would like to see the developers be more supportive of Borderlands modders and
no. What do you think Borderlands should be more like? Do you think it should be more of a story game similar to Fallout and Skyrim, or do you think they should go with more content drops like you said in your video?
Oh god, now you got me on the ropes. Hold on.
No, what do you think after a conversation? Did I change your mind?
You definitely opened certain perspectives, and you even talked about certain things I would like to see. Maybe it's because I've experienced the other games more. I don't know if you've played Warframe or Destiny like heavily.
No.
Maybe it's because I've experienced those games, but there is a lot of it feels more alive, and I think when you go fully into that single player game, that's why there's mods for Fallout.
Have you played a lot of Fallout and Skyrim?
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
I played every Fallout, yeah.
Have you played it deeply? Have you ever gotten involved with their communities?
No.
Okay. So then, yeah, you haven't gotten involved with their community. I haven't gotten involved with Destiny or Warframe at all.
I can speak for Fallout.
Okay, I will say this. I will add this to my closing statement. If Gearbox wasn't a shitbag company and they could actually do a live service game and it wouldn't just be a fucking money grubbing cash cow, yeah, Borderlands there could be a fucking Borderlands live service that would be dope. I've played many MMOs. I used to love MMOs as well. I've played many MMOs that are amazing. Like, and could Borderlands work in an MMO world? Abso-fucking-lutely. But I think with Borderlands 3, they actually heavily tried to push the game in that direction. Like, everything wrong with Borderlands 3, I think it's because they're trying to make the game like Destiny or Diablo. And that's why I'm like so adamant that it should just be a story game. Because that's what made Borderlands 2 great. That's why Borderlands 2 is #1 rated on that fucking Metacritic thing. Like, because it's not those games.
See, I wish we talked about this earlier, because I kind of agree with you saying they were trying to go for the live servers, but then I almost question it. I'm like, I don't feel like they were, because if they were, they would actually give a shit about the UI issues when your teammates go down.
Bro, but that's the difference. Gearbox is a shitbag company.
Yeah, it's like, I see what you mean, but
no, that's the difference. If Gearbox wasn't a shitbag company, they could do it. But, bro, you don't see how with the Borderlands 3 content schedule that they tried to keep players coming back every week? Like, you don't think Loot the Universe, as lame as an event as it was...
Can I do my fucking closing statement?
We're not closing anymore. We're discussing again.
What the fuck? I was like,
I was like,
I thought we were closing. I get 2 sentences into my closing, and then we
wait. Do you think Borderlands 3 tried to do live service or no?
I think they tried to do both and failed on both.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they didn't commit to either one, so neither one really mattered.
And that's why they have such an identity crisis, because
that's why we are in this call,
exactly,
feeling from both sides, because Gearbox can't even make up their own mind.
Exactly.
Because you have your half where you're like, I see this story, I see this side, then you have my half that's like, I see the potential, but they won't fucking do it.
Exactly. They half-assed both, and the game was a big fail in the eyes of the community. Even though Randy says, oh, it was a big monetary success, expect Wonderlands 2, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, we'll do that in part 2.
Dude, we should do more podcasts.
That's the perfect closing statement to this, I think. No, like, to the point where we both agree with certain features and things that should come to the series, but the sad part is they keep 50-50ing both of our sides here
Bro,
to the point where they're not pleasing either of us.
Listen, I'm leaving all this in the video because every one of our podcasts is going to end in Gearbox is a shitbag company.
Okay, I mean, it's like there's been things where I've been that one new video. What's that one new video? Oh, the YouTuber, yeah. If Borderlands fails, Borderlands 4 dies.
Yeah.
Or Borderlands 4 fails, Borderlands dies.
Yeah.
He literally, I think around the 40-ish minute mark, points out the fact that he would like looter shooter style elements as well, but he even points out like it feels like they're doing it and then they don't support it. Like, you release this multiplayer fun thing, but you don't make the multiplayer good enough for people to use the thing that you want them to use it for. Like, it makes no sense. And I think there's more people. I feel like if I would have brought up live service in Borderlands 2's heyday, I would be exiled, and rightfully so, because there's no evidence supporting that. Borderlands 2 was fine because it had a good story. There's the kicker. Borderlands 3 story is so bad that people are kind of pushing it away from a story game to the point where Randy Pitchford on Twitter, I'm so glad I'm talking about this. Randy on Twitter finished Diablo and he's like, can somebody tell me what Diablo's story is about? And I'm like, I don't even think he cares about the story at this point.
I've seen people say that the story needs to be shorter and that Borderlands story is not important. And I think once again, they've identified the problem that Borderlands 3 story is bad, but it's a horrible fucking solution. The story does not need to be shorter. It needs to be good, and it needs to be well paced. Pacing is so important.
100%.
Bro, the fact that there's a mission where you go meet Tannis for the first time and she says, wait around and loot till I'm done, that is retarded. That's actually brain dead.
Okay, I literally just got a comment 2 minutes ago on my channel. I'm not joking. It's like they're listening to us. He says, Borderlands, or she, I don't care. Borderlands as a live service like Warframe, Destiny 2, Genshin Impact, Warzone, Fortnite ? Damn, that would be great to see features like this implemented. That's why it's not going to happen.
Heart that comment.
He said that would take work and effort from the dev team, something that Gearbox clearly does not know how to do.
And
honestly,
I gotta point out,
should be Gearbox sucks.
I gotta point out for the devs on the dev team that do care, it's actually not the devs' fault. Like, Gearbox sold out to Embracer and keep moving devs onto new games. They keep taking away supports from the previous games, and that's why it should just be a story game. Put all the shit in at launch, release your 4 DLCs. Release your headhunters, move on to the next game. Let's go. Support the modding community so everyone can replay the games.
Yeah, and see, that's another disconnect that we're sitting here because I wouldn't make those statements I make if they supported mods like Fallout supports their mods, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't care Borderlands isn't adding new content. If we had a Torg mod like 6 months after launch that was fully working and didn't reskin every skill in the game and delete other parts of the game for it to exist, Borderlands would be in a way better spot. It would actually be in a better spot than a live service would be, in my opinion. Yep. I think more modding with more freedom to the modders would make Borderlands more successful than a live service Borderlands.
All right, that's a good place to cut it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below what you think. Like the video. Go watch Termx's video because you're going to agree with the 90% that I did, and you're going to disagree with the part where he said, I'm just fucking with you.
Fuck off.
All right, see you guys in the next one. We're out.
Peace.